was there a great falling away sometime in ages past in the church? Was there a great apostasy? Joseph Smith, the founder of the Church of Latter-day Saints, believed this, that after the age of the apostles, the church became so corrupted, so distorted, changed the gospel so much that divine authority and teaching were removed from the world, only to be reestablished through Joseph Smith almost 1,800 years later. And while we don't believe as traditional and Orthodox Christians the teachings of Joseph Smith, many Christians today do believe something very similar, that in some time in the past, the church lost its way. The church itself needed to be resurrected and rebuilt, not simply renewed by living the faith once delivered to all the saints, but reestablished, reformed. Different Christians will place the moment of this change at different points in history. But one of the most common ones is during the reign of the Emperor Constantine. And I find this actually very ironic. Constantine became the emperor of the Roman Empire in the early 4th century. Constantine was the Roman emperor who first legalized Christianity and who made it possible for Christian believers to worship openly without fear of persecution and even martyrdom. He supported the church financially and politically, and he even hosted what we know as the First Ecumenical Council, calling together leaders from the church from around the inhabited world to rightly divide the word of truth, to draft the essentials of the Christian faith into a proclamation, which we know is the Nicene Creed, to defend the church against heresy. What I find very ironic about many contemporary Christians pointing to this time as an age of corruption and changing of the nature of the church and the gospel is that I believe today we would welcome an Emperor Constantine, a secular ruler who would nonetheless support politically and financially the proclamation of the gospel and the upbuilding of the churches. And isn't that what so many practicing Christians are doing and being encouraged to do by voting according to their conscience and faith, so that legislators and judges would be there to support and to return to the Judeo-Christian morals that lie at the foundation of our nation? I believe that many people point to the era of Constantine as the time of great falling away and great change in the life of the church. And that's because so many of us believe that the form of worship and the beliefs and practices that we have today are identical and essentially the same as those practiced by the apostles and their immediate successors. So it's things like the hierarchical nature of the church with the ordained ministry of the bishop and the presbytery and the deacons. It's the centrality of the Eucharist, that the bread and wine truly and really become the body and blood of Christ. The things like honoring the Virgin Mary, venerating the remains of the saints, the martyrs who gave their life for Christ, literally, and shed their blood for him. Even liturgical worship. Many Christians today believe that sometime during Constantine's reign or very near it, were the times when these changes happened and the church lost its way. And that's from an ignorance of history. Because if we really look at all of these things that I've just said that really challenge what we may believe when we compare them to our own practices in contemporary American Christianity, we find that they predate the reign of Constantine, not only by a century, a few centuries, but they go all the way back to the immediate successors to the holy apostles. And even if we have eyes to see, we can see these same challenging beliefs and practices mentioned and referred to even in Holy Scripture. If we believe that the church lost its way, if we believe that it got off the rails, if we believe that there was a great apostasy and that there was a necessary reformation for the reestablishment and resurrection of the church, we believe that those chosen directly by the apostles, and I would say even the apostles themselves, lost their way. And not only that, but something much more serious even still. We believe, whether we have consciously thought this or unconsciously made this presumption, that Jesus Christ did not keep his promise, that the gates of hell would not prevail against the church, that he would send his Spirit, the Spirit of truth, to preserve his followers in all truth. The church has never lost its way. It may be very different than what we do as church today in our various Christian communities and traditions. But the faith was once for all delivered to the saints, and we find it preserved even from the ravenous wolves in every generation, in every moment in history, from the time when the Lord breathed on his holy apostles and gave them his great promises until he shall return again in glory.